This issue, this discussion, does not concern the entirety of the Ummah. This is specific to a certain group. This is specific to a section of the Ummah. This whole ideology, which is a cult, and moving like a gang, and being a mafia, and part of it is also being in a bubble. But one thing he says is that this is something that has not been done before, and I would humbly disagree.
أنا الفقير إلى رب البريات، أنا المسيكين في مجموع حالات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you're here, then you must have came across the video of some of our brothers discussing a very important matter, talking about a certain group, talking about certain issues, certain incidents as well that happened in the past and that perhaps continue to happen. And to be honest with you, I've wanted to do a video like this for a long time myself. Being from Birmingham, what many would consider to be Salafi heartland in the West or in the European continent basically. And I wanted to take this as an opportunity, then posting the video to comment on, to perhaps mention some additions as well. Before I do so, there was one comment that stuck with me after I watched the video, and it was a question that was raised. Why is it that the Muslims are going through a hard time at this moment in time, and we are busying the Ummah with something else? And the person mentioned this is typically what madkhalis would do. And I want to say, first and foremost, may Allah Azza wa Jal have mercy on the people of Palestine, those who died from them, and give sabr to those who are still alive. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala aid them and make it easy for them. Allahumma ameen. Their reward is only going to be with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect them, to give them victory as well. Allahumma ameen. With that being said, this issue, this discussion does not concern the entirety of the Ummah. This is specific to a certain group. This is specific to a section of the Ummah. If you're not directly involved in all of this, then you don't need to listen to this. This does not concern you, right? You don't have to watch it. Don't watch it just because you want to watch it, just to know the drama, for gossip. If you have a general interest, a general need to do so, then this is who we're targeting. This is who we want to address. As for anyone else, then you don't have to watch it. So this does not concern the entirety of the Ummah. And to be honest with you, I'm sometimes amazed by the fact that when you have Salafis, quote unquote, fighting themselves, it's always something that people are amazed by, when in fact you have other groups, other parties fighting themselves, and that is not really being spoken about. When it's other groups speaking or fighting or having discussion between themselves, it's fine, you can do that. But Salafis, or you're busying the Ummah with something else, you're this and you're that. Now, concerning the brothers on the video itself, then I'm not particularly close to any one of them. Abu Makkah, Abdurrahman, he is the one that I know the most. We've spoken before. And as for Abdallah from Uganda, and also the brother Bassam, then I've seen them before in a conference that was organized by our brother Muhammad Abdul Razak about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, something like that, in Masjid Ridwan in Birmingham. So I've seen them before. And I actually saw Abdullah again in Kuwait recently when I was there. And I wish I knew this video was coming, so I could have spoke to him about it. But Alhamdulillah, we didn't speak when we were in Kuwait. We never spoke actually before. As for the last brother, Ilyas, I believe that's his name, then I have no contact with him at all. I have no, we don't know each other. Now, may Allah Azza wa Jal reward these brothers well, and I'm sure they intended well, inshallah Azza wa Jal. And anyone who has been following some of the things that they've been doing recently can clearly see that they are much better, much better than those who they used to be with in terms of dealing with the Muslims or the Salafis specifically. And subhanAllah, I see them as being a breeze of fresh air in the da'wah scene these days. Walillahi alhamdu wal minna. May Allah reward them well and make them very beneficial to the ummah, generally speaking, and to the Salafi communities where they are in particular. Allahumma ameen. With that being said, this is not going to be in bashing of anyone. It's not going to be in any shape, form or fashion in defense of Salafi publications. It's not going to be to wage war or something like that. What we want to do in this video, in this sitting, is we want to have a discussion. We want to talk about, or we want to analyze, comment, we want to clarify, right? We don't want to get into people's intentions and so on and so forth. But as they said, the brothers on the podcast, we want to raise important matters, inshallah Azza wa Jal. So we're going to raise some questions, very important, critical questions, based on what they mentioned. And this is because when I was watching it, particularly, personally, questions came to my mind, and I'm sure many of you also. So, inshallah, let's get into it. We're not going to, of course, go through the whole of the video, but points here and there, inshallah, that we're going to address bi'idhnillah azza wa jal.
Oppression, the injustice perpetrated by a certain group of individuals or a couple of individuals who claim that the fact that they're calling to a salafiyyah, the correct creed, but in reality they have strayed far from its essence.
The first one that I want to talk about is the usage of the word individual. And subhanAllah, if you have been Salafi for a long time, you can clearly see that one thing that Salafi publications has been very successful on was to come up with a certain lingo that many people that was ascribing to them at some point, many people that are still with them, they use the same language, using the words like individuals, okay, slogans, for example, the elders, okay, the brothers, okay. You have in the USA, for example, they say the women folk. No one usually speaks like this, but I believe because we were affected by the da'wah from far or close, then you've adapted some certain a certain way of speaking, okay. Now again, even when you leave them, there's always that lingo that sticks to you, with you. That's a fact. Moving on.
Completely cut ties with one another and so many other things within the Muslim community. Our approach, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, just to clarify, is going to be one, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, where we use al-ilm, knowledge, and wisdom. We use hikmah. And also we aim, inshallah, and we hope that we're just in our approach. We strive, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, within this podcast to restore the true teachings of Islam, that which Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came with. Throughout our journey, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll aim to analyze and correct the misinterpretations of the sacred hadith that they've used, the aqwal of the salaf that they've used, the certain statement of those ulama in our time and the ulama that came before us, because that's something that was very much prevalent.
So the intent of the video, as Abdullah, may Allah bless him, mentioned, is to clarify, to correct, to refute as well what has taken place, the extremism and so on and so forth, taking ahadith out of their context, aqwal of the salaf and the a'imma, using them on people when they are not supposed to be used, or people who they were not supposed to be used on, and so on and so forth. And doing so with knowledge, ilm, with balance, also justice. And inshallah, I believe they've done so. Of course, many people are not going to agree. Many people are going to see what they did as disrespect, right? So the intent, as he mentions, is not to seek any revenge or to seek any acceptance from anyone, or even to start a war. But I would say, and Allah knows best, this is going to be definitely a turning point. She definitely could start a war eventually, or possibly, where there's going to be perhaps a new campaign against these brothers, and I'm sure it's coming. After that,
many of us have our own students and live in different countries. In terms of myself, a lot of us have different history, and throughout some of these things that we'll talk about, throughout the history of some of these things, we've been getting questions. A lot of let me speak into the mic a little bit more. A lot of us get people asking us, especially in times of confusion, what's this and what's that, and clarify this for me, clarify that for me. Why has this brother been spoken about, and why did this happen, why did that happen? So what hasn't ever been done is something like this, where all of these things, light has been shed on it, clarified what the actual balance is.
Brother Ilyas, may Allah bless him also, Allahumma ameen, he speaks about the fact that they were asked questions and they want to clarify again, why did this brother get refuted? What happened? Can you explain it to us? But one thing he says is that this is something that has not been done before, and I would humbly disagree. I think this is something that has been done before, and just to give an example or a few examples of how these matters were dealt with, about 10 years ago, our brother Abu Muhammad, he actually put together a playlist which was one of its kind, a playlist which had, or which still has, and is still on his channel. Inshallah, we're going to have it in the description, where there is more than 100 videos about these issues, clarifying, refuting, mentioning statements of the scholars of the scholars of the past, of the present, scholars that only passed away very recently, incidents, many issues about the da'wah from perhaps the early 2000s or the late 90s maybe, all the way to about 2013. A lot of videos, a lot of clarifications has been made in that playlist itself. Whether you agree or you don't agree, whether you see him as a person of the sunnah or not, there has been an attempt to do so, right? Also, you have Dr. Khalid Green, who also has a playlist, Manhaj Sessions, where again he invited a few brothers to have interviews and talk about these issues as well, the history of the da'wah and so on and so forth. We have a lecture also by Muhammad bin Munir, Ustaduna, Shaykhuna, Barakallahu fihi, where he was with Dr. Tahir White, Allah bless him and reward him well, and others, and they entitled the lecture Stop the Fitna, which is kind of specifically to do with the same thing but in the USA. Okay, you also have the brothers of Pure Islam, Nabil Al-Injilizi and also Abu Abdus which again I don't have any contact with, but this is what I've come across. Okay, they have a playlist again with other brothers reclaiming salafiyyah, from the exploit of Haddadiyah. That was another attempt in the very recent times after the split happened between Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi and Shaykh Rabi and Shaykh Ubayd, rahimahullah ta'ala. So there has been attempts to deal with this issue, whether in recent times, whether 10 years ago, or even before that. Me personally, and perhaps this is something that I might do while doing a series about myself, how did I come to Salafiyyah? What happened? How long was I with SP Self Publications? When did I leave? What happened? And so on and so forth. I spent at least a good 6 months, maybe more than that, researching this issue. So there has been many attempts to clarify. So perhaps maybe the brothers were not aware of these videos and these playlists, okay? But inshallah now they are. And again, like I said, I'm gonna add them in the description for anyone who wants to check it out. But if the intent was to mean younger brothers, recent graduates, maybe around their 30s, nothing like this was done very recently, then yeah, I agree with it. Nothing like that was done very recently like this. But there has been many attempts though. So this video that the brothers did is only going to be in addition to what has been done before, and it's very irrelevant whether you deem those brothers who did those attempts as Salafis or not. Is not relevant. A shahid is there has been attempts to talk about this, inshallah. So moving on, the next point is
the fact that growing up, and I think we can all relate to this, so that's why I wanted to make it the first point, the point of cultivating Salafis upon blind following. Okay, and by this I mean also making them be at a stage where they don't surpass them in knowledge. So I want all of you to just give me certain points, and I'll start first and foremost with Abdallah.
Cultivating brothers from us growing up on blind following, keeping you under control basically. And subhanallah, I think this is very, 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 very sad. And there's many details that I mentioned in the video anyway, where you can clearly see systematically that the followers are not being given what they need to excel, to go forward, to start seeking knowledge correctly as they should, right? The same books have been taught on the same level, okay? Cultivating Salafis on blind following, being a muqallid. And just to illustrate this very, very quickly, Uncle Abu Khadejah's classes at the Salafi Masjid, when I used to attend them, especially Sharh al-Sunnah of Al-Imam al-Barbahari rahimahullah ta'ala, I started going to those classes, and he had already started the book. When I joined, at that time, if I'm not mistaken, he used to read from Barbahari's work in Arabic and translate it in English, and also read the commentary of Shaykh Fawzan and also translate it. And then he added on the explanation of Shaykh Rabi, hafidhahullah ta'ala, in Arabic and also in English. I had a French copy with some of the tadiqat, annotations of Shaykh Ahmed al-Najmi rahimahullah, and I would take those additional points basically. But in the audience, you would see people had the translation of Shaykh Fawzan's explanation, and I don't know what they were writing when he was reading exactly the same thing that was mentioned in the book. Okay, that class took a good maybe 2.5 years, if I'm not mistaken, to be completed. Barbahari's work, and it was for me it was very strange. It was very strange. Of course, there's holidays, Hajj and Umrah, not feeling well, cancelling the class, and things like that. And that's not a problem. But to take 2.5 years, more than 2 years to complete a book like this, I'm not the only person that thought this is very strange and this is long. So I actually stopped going to those classes before he even finished the book. It was becoming very long, and it wasn't necessarily something that I personally needed and that many brothers needed at that time. And one other point that I want to raise here is, again, I'm not the only person that thinks this. I'm thinking aloud here for many people. How is it that at the masjid you have sometimes Arabic classes, sometimes the Arabic classes you don't even know what happens to them, okay? Again, like I said, the same classes going on, and it is as if we don't want people to go further. We don't want people to go further. We keep giving them the same thing. If you look at the conferences, for example, if you analyze the title of the conferences, that the winter conference or maybe sometimes the summer as well, you will see they revolve around the same topic, which is not necessarily bad. Because of course Islam revolves around certain things. But just keeping the people with the same rhetoric, and even going back to that point of Sharh al-Sunnah, in a class of maybe an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, only a little bit of it will be about the book itself. most of the class would be talking about someone, Green Lane, Abu Usamah Ath-Thahabi, Fulan, Allan refuted this, and this one refuted, and this one went against Sunnah. Every single or most classes, the same topics again and again and again and again and again and again. Just, it's like programming basically. So the point that I wanted to mention earlier is very crucial as well. And it is that, why is it that Abu Hakeem, who is clearly more knowledgeable than Uncle Abu Khadejah, has studied more, has been overseas, is clearly more beneficial. Many people that you ask at the Salafi Masjid, those who follow Salafi publications, they will tell you that they see Abu Hakeem to be clearly more beneficial. I see the same thing. I remember going to his classes on Lum'atul I'tiqad of Ibn Qudama in Aqidah. Very nice, but you can see that the man has learned. Someone you can clearly benefit from. I'm not saying you cannot necessarily benefit from Uncle Abu Khadejah, and I'm saying Abu Hakeem is just more beneficial, right? And linking into the recent finah that happened, the recent splits that happened between, again, Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, Hafidhahullah, and Shaykh Rabi and Shaykh Ubayd, rahimahullah ta'ala. I've heard again that at the beginning of all of this, Abu Hakeem and Abdul Ilah and other duats of Salafi publication, they used to be together. And you had on the other side Abu Khadejah and Abu Iyad. But for some reason, that didn't happen. I heard myself that it was only a matter of time for them to actually split. I thought myself that the Salafi Masjid on Right Street, some people call it Wrong Street, was going to be, or was with Abu Khadejah, and Aston, Masjid Sunnah Nabawiyah, was with Abu Khadejah, with Abu Hakeem and the other brothers. That's how it was going to be. That's why there was going to be a split. But you know, a brother even said to me that Abu Hakeem used to say, beware of the Sa'afiqah. But what happened now? What happened to that? I'll leave you, to think about it.
That keeps them blind following, and that is what causes a lot of the fitan that we've seen throughout the years of, so and so Shaykh said such and such. And you say, can you show me where that is? And they don't know, because they don't know Arabic. That so and so told me, or Shaykh so and so told me.
Yeah.
You know? And so they don't know Arabic. And so I had actually, throughout the years that I was studying an Arabic institute online, where I had Qur'an professors teaching in my institute. So one of the prominent, individuals who was waging war against that institute that I had at that time, and even telling people not to join it and all these things. And that
before you mention the name, sorry.
Yeah.
What was the reason you opened that institute?
The main reason was exactly for this reason. So it started actually with a brother who said, we don't know Arabic and this and that. Can you find us someone to teach Arabic?
So the point here is that Arabic will set you free. Arabic is going to set you free, and I agree with this 1,000,000,000%. One of the reasons why people are kept as blind followers is because they don't know Arabic. It's because they don't know Arabic. And sometimes you shouldn't always or totally blame the person who has the blind followers, the leader who wants to keep people under his wing, under his control, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you have to blame the blind follower himself. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? Don't you think for yourself? Aren't you tired of every time having someone else telling you the Sheikh said? Every conference where you have with the scholar, you always have to have there's always has to be a translator for you. Aren't you tired of it? You've been Muslim for a long time. You've been on the da'wah for a long time, salafiyyah, putting emphasis on ilm and so on and so forth. When are you going to learn Arabic? Billah alayk. How are you going to allow yourself to be a blind follower of Salafi publications and their du'at, but then you're talking about people, you're criticizing people who follow blindly Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, or Malik rahimahullah, or Imam Shafi'i, or Imam Ahmed, for example, you're in a worse situation than them. I'd rather follow the person who passed away, as it came in many narrations, because the person who's alive, then he's not free from fitna. So this is food for thought. Aren't you tired? When are you going to learn Arabic?
This student at Andalus Institute went from this.
ماذا تدرس تصيب I forgot the word تصيب مهندس
To this.
أسلمت قبل سنتين والحمد لله. وبعد أسلمت أردت أن أتعلم اللغة العربية لكي أفهم القرآن ولكي أفهم السنة ولكي أتعلم الإسلام. حينئذ ما ظننت أنني أستطيع أن أتعلم في هذه الطريقة، يعني عن بعد. كنت أحد منكم، ولكن التحقت واستفدت الكثير والحمد لله.
In 61 weeks. I don't know how else to put it, but I need you to realize how crazy this is. Because we all know translations, as well intended they might be, they will never capture the meanings, the true meanings of the original text of the Quran and the Ahadith in the Arabic language.
Alhamdulillah, from the name of Allah Azza wa Jalla, on me personally, is Allah allowed me to realize this a lot, very early, that I had to learn Arabic in the UK. We were not going to necessarily be accepted in Medina. We're going to study, outside or overseas and so on and so forth. So I started learning Arabic for myself. And this is what I've been telling brothers who sometimes ask me about this. What do we do? We're confused, refutation, and so on and so forth. I say, stick to two things. Learn Arabic and Quran. Learn Arabic and Quran. Make sure that you have the Arabic down packed. You can read properly, you can write, you can understand. Start by watching videos with subtitles, and then you know the subtitles, and then you learn, and so on and so forth. And you're going to see for yourself. Again, Arabic will set you free. As for if you want to keep yourself as a blind follower, you don't want to move ahead, you don't want to go forward, then don't blame anyone except yourself. So Elias, he mentions that he was trying to cut this pattern of the Sheikh said. How do you know the Sheikh said? Fulan told me. No, we want to know where you got that from. We want you to understand the Arabic for ourselves. That's why he had the institute. That's why he created, or that's why he set up the institute. So moving on.
It will seem sincere to you, but from the moment, because many of the students have experienced this, right? From the moment you get accepted to uni, from the moment you start to excel, and the world of Salafiyyah, the true Salafiyyah opens up to you, and you become a threat, then that's when you see the real side. And that's a few in number, do you get it? Yes. Most people are upon Salafi for 20, 30 years, they don't know Arabic, they can't even read the Quran properly. Yeah. So how are you going to know the truth? You understand? They would only start showing the enmity when you don't agree with everything, due to the extensive knowledge that you've had, due to you going and study.
Again, subhanAllah, this is again very sad. How are we, people of the Sunnah, Salafis, al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal? We claim to put emphasis on knowledge, but only a few actually go to seek knowledge. And I'm not talking about even necessarily going out to seek knowledge. I'm talking about even in the UK, in the West. People are upon Salafiyyah for a long time, but we can't read the Quran properly, tajweed, and so on and so forth. Which Salafiyyah is this? And the moment you have a brother who goes out, studies, when he comes back, you're warning against him. Warning against him. Talking about him. Right? He can't have any classes. If you look in Birmingham right now, for a long time there was no classes going on. Or only a few. Because people would come back and they get warned against. You can't do any class, you can't do anything. You even sometimes expected to go and come back and be in the same classes you used to be with, learning the same books, with the same people. by the same teacher. Although you know Arabic now, you don't need English, you don't need translations, but you have to come. You still have to come. So as he was mentioning, Brother Bassam, Allah bless him, the moment you step out, the moment you start thinking for yourself, the moment you start going to the sources yourself, you become an enemy, you become arrogant, you warn against, and so on and so forth, because of the knowledge that you've learned. So what is the benefit of knowledge if I'm not going to change, if I'm not going to go forward, if I'm not going to start making my own research? Well, what is the benefit of knowledge then? It's a waste of time. Then we're calling to the scholars, but we're calling to knowledge, we're calling to learning, and al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
The people in, even after you know Arabic, they're referring back to people in UK
Scholars
or British people, like students of knowledge, or basic, simple students of knowledge in Medina, in Saudi, some of the scholars. Yeah. So they were controlling the so-called Salafis, even from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it was like, as long as you stayed with that bubble, you could come back and teach with us. But if you start to leave that bubble, and then you start seeing reality, then you become a threat, then you no longer agree with everything we say, then halas, we have to tame you now.
SubhanAllah. Listening to this from these brothers is shocking. It's shocking. As they say, وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. I used to hear the same thing. You have brothers being controlled from the West. You're in Medina. With the scholars that we've been calling you towards for years. Shaykh Rabi and our Shaykh Ubayd, and so on and so forth. You're in Medina. How are you getting control from the West? Well, are the scholars of Medina not enough? If you were going to be controlled by someone, shouldn't it be the scholars of Medina or Mecca? Shouldn't it be the shuyukh that you've been calling people to? Supposedly. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. And he speaks about, you have to be aware. You have to be aware. You can become a hizbi in Medina. You can become a hizbi in Medina, but how are you going to become a hizbi like that if you stick to the scholars that we've been, again, calling you towards for years? Scholars that we have tailoring with. How are you going to become a hizbi in Medina? And that goes back to the point of keeping people as blind followers under your control, basically. That way, when you come back to the West, no, you're in Medina, it's fine. But when you come back to the West, know that you're going to be under us. You're going to be one of the foot soldiers. Allah understand. You have to refer back to Salafi publications in the West. And they're the one that tell you where you can go, where you can't go. I'm in Medina, ya Sheikh. The least I can do is just stick to the shuyukh that you've been telling me to follow. You've been telling me to benefit from for those years. Now I have them in front of me. I can learn from them directly.
And halas, we have to tame you now. Or we have to tame you.
So Bassam was talking about when you leave the bubble. When you leave the bubble, that's when you become an enemy. That's when you become a threat.
Patience, makes sense.
We have to tame you now. We have to speak about your honor.
That bubble, it seems like you're describing a cult or a gang. That's what it's. That's what you're describing to me.
At the end of the day, this is how it was. I think every student.
This is very funny and very true at the same time. It says, it seems to me you're describing a cult. Why you use the word bubble? Now, personally, the first time I heard this ideology, the group referred to as a cult, it was from Abu Aliya, who said it in Qatar, if I'm not mistaken. He was actually an imam there. Now he's back in the USA. But he's still very active on Twitter, mashallah, on X, not Twitter anymore, of course. And also Dr. Abdul Haq Baker from the UK. He had a whole paper, a whole series, called cultish tendencies or something like this. And these two brothers, they dealt with this issue very academically, mentioning the characteristics, analyzing it so much that you can, subhanAllah, see that it is what it is. Ismun li musamma. So I say, and Allah knows best, if you're going to use the word cult Are you going to call it a bubble? Are you going to call it a gang? Are you going to call it a mafia? All of these names apply. All of these descriptions apply. There's aspects of this whole ideology, which is a cult, and moving like a gang, and being a mafia, and part of it is also being in a bubble. Someone might say, I'd rather be in a bubble because I want to preserve Madinah and so on and so forth. Khalas, we've spoken about blind following already. That's what you want to do, khalas, that's fine. We want to be in the bubble of Islam. We want to be in the bubble of Islam. We want to be in the bubble of the sunnah. We don't want to be in the bubble of Fulan and Allan or this or that group, no.
There's a famous video by Abu Khadejah, may Allah guide us and guide him and guide all the Muslims, which I came across many years ago when I was young. I myself at the time didn't understand the need, but it was a video amongst the line where we've been upon the da'wah salafiyyah for XYZ amount of years. Now that specifically I'm asking you, Abdurrahman, is that something that was known by the Prophet ﷺ, or the companions, or the mashayikh, or the...
So videos of Uncle Abu Khadejah speaking about how many years he's been on the da'wah. And anyone who knows Uncle Abu Khadejah, you would know that he mentioned this a lot. Many times to prove the fact that they've been strong and firm on Salafiyyah throughout so many fitan. Fulan was refuted, Fulan is not on sunnah anymore, Fulan became an innovator, a mubtadi, and so on and so forth, but we stayed firm for this X amount of years. Anyone who knows, who attends his duroos, many times in the conferences actually, you would know this. You would notice it from him. And FYI, there's nothing wrong with coming before, preceding people. Of course, this is Salafiyyah. We have the prior predecessors, the Salaf Salih. Right? There's nothing wrong with being before people. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. The first and foremost, the Muhajirin and the Ansar, the Sahaba. والذين جاءوا من بعدهم يقولون ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان. Right? Those who came after, they say, Oh Allah Azza wa Jal, have mercy on those who came before us, those who preceded us with Iman. Okay? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, لا تسبوا أصحابي, don't curse my companions. And he was talking to other companions as well. So he's talking about the major one, the one that came before, those that were first and foremost to become Sahabas. Right? So just because he came before, that's not an issue. That's not an issue. The issue is taking that as a proof that we are on the sunnah. And if you're not with us, then you're not on the sunnah. That's the issue. That is the issue. Do we have any companion though, any scholar, past or present, using this as a proof to show that he is on the sunnah and he's on salafiyyah and he's on the truth? Allah knows best. I've never came across something like this, right? But the point is, just being on the da'wah for a long time, he does deserve some sort of respect. That does not mean in any shape, form or fashion that the person is guided, right? And as the brothers mentioned, how many has been on the sunnah for a longer time than you, but now they're on something else? Many people. Right, so that's not a proof. That's not a proof. And just to play a clip, connected perhaps to this, is a video that I came across some time ago, where he's actually talking
about. As for where I studied, then walillahi alhamd, and all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I have been upon salafiyyah, or what we understood to be salafiyyah, since the late 1980s. Since the late 1980s. I was introduced to Salafiyyah in around about 1988. My first
So Uncle Abu Khadejah was introduced to Salafiyyah in the late 80s. 1988. That's a clear example of that. Mentioning how long you've been on the Sunnah and Salafiyyah, which is not wrong. One more time, it's not necessarily something bad. It's praiseworthy. MashaAllah, you've been on the da'wah for a long time. But why mention it though? So we have to understand this is not a proof that a person is guided, that a person is infallible, and we have to follow them.
That our brother Elias posted on his Twitter platform, and some that saw it, some that didn't. It's linked to this point I've just mentioned about, someone quoting and stating the fact that they've been upon something for 30 years. So you state, imagine ascribing to Salafiyyah for 10 plus years and still believing that what makes you Salafi is the fact that you pray at a particular masjid. Abdurrahman, I'm linking this point directly to you. I want to understand something. You were the Imam of Masjid. Now, to my understanding, that was the second most respected masjid in the whole of the UK.
1A, 1B.
110%. Team A, Team B.
Yeah.
You got the squad, the football team, and you got the reserves. So I want to understand something.
So going into the issue of Masjid Astan, and you're only a Salafi if you pray in a particular specific masjid, right? And they went on to mention Masjid Ridwan. I've never been to Masjid Ridwan before. I've heard of the masjid, but it seems as Masjid Ridwan in Medina is like the right street in the UK or the German town in the USA, and that is the masjid which you have to. If we never see you in this masjid, there's a problem, there's an issue, and this is what Salafi is meant to be, and this is how they have, in many parts of the world, or in many countries, that masjid where, that's the masjid where you have to come. If you're never in that masjid, or you're in that masjid only a few times, then you're left. But someone asked me personally, what do you have against, why is it that we don't see you in the masjid? The brothers have told me that we don't see you in the masjid. You don't see me in the masjid? I pray locally, that's what I do. Moving on.
Actually, I was forced to go to the masjid. I'll say that. Reward or going to Ridwan. So I just generally did my own timetable. I had issues because of the fact that I didn't go to Masjid Ridwan in the beginning. This is 2012 when I first came.
So you had problems from the Salafi?
110%. I'll talk about another affair if you ask me this again, and then it will link up to another thing. But I'll just stick to the masjid bit. The masjid bit, so eventually I was forced to go to the masjid. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. I was forced.
Yeah.
A brother came to me and he more or less forced me, but in a subtle way, thinking back.
That's why I liked it. I think Abdullah was very blunt in the way he spoke. He said he was forced eventually to come to the masjid. And subhanAllah, again he said they were in a very subtle way. And this is what they would do to you. Very, very slightly. Sometimes they're very harsh about it. But he was forced to go to the masjid. You have to come and you have no choice anymore. And subhanAllah, I'm not talking about him specifically. But this whole issue, puts a question mark on the person's manhood. Standing for yourself and saying, no, I don't have to come. When did Salafiyyah become going to Masjid Ridwan? Or going to Wright Street? Or going to Germantown? Or to this or that masjid in your country specifically? And standing for yourself. And it puts a lot of, as I said, doubt about the person's manhood. You can't think for yourself, you can't be a man and say, no, I do other things, I have to do other things, I can't come and stick to that. You have people that would leave a masjid close to them, but then of course they're going to say something like, well, the masjid close to me are on the sunnah, well, I don't see them to be on the sunnah. Of course that's what they mean, so that's why I have to come to the Salafi Masjid. That's how I have to come to this particular masjid, not just because of the khutbah, but just because I have to check in. As Ummah mentions, a list is like an invisible list of presence. You have to be there. So he said he was forced to come to the masjid. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless him and reward him for being clear.
Exactly, it's a country of Tawheed and Sunnah, and then they're talking about
They won't have the audacity to say in front of the shiuch like that.
Of course not.
It's because it's like a secretive qaida that they just invented. They wouldn't say that in front of Shaykh Ubayd. Yeah, Sheikh, we deem those that don't come to this masjid as being weak Salafis or not.
Nothing wrong with their minute.
Now, it's a very important point. Very important point. Having a Salafi Masjid or being a Salafi Masjid in the land of Tawheed, It's possible that in the land of Tawheed, in the land of the Sunnah and things like that, where there's a lot of Muslim, a lot of Sunnah going on, it's possible that there's a masjid which is not on the Sunnah. It's possible, right? This is not the issue here. The issue is making a particular masjid, the masjid where the Salafis come to. And if you don't come to that masjid, then there's a problem in your salafiyyah, right? Now, a very important question that I want to raise here is, I don't understand, personally speaking, how for years those shuyukh, Shaykh Ubayd rahimahullah and other than him, did not realize that this is what Salafi publication was doing. And no one ever told them about it. No one ever mentioned it to them. You know, he did mention in the video that Shaykh Abdallah Al Bukhari said, no, you don't have, there's no particular masjid like that, right? And I don't think they will be very happy with that answer, with an answer like this. But it's either those scholars knew about it and they agreed, or they knew that this is what was going on, but they kept it quiet, right? They didn't want to expose it like that, and they were advising in private, no, Ikhwan, don't do this. You don't have to come to Masjid Ridwan for you to be Salafi, and so on and so forth. Or Salafi publication just has a very, very good system on hiding those issues from scholars. And I hope this is the latest, that the latest is the case. They just hiding, they were just very good at hiding it from those scholars. Because if those shuyukh knew about it and they agreed to it, it was a problem, of course. You know? And then they move on to speak about, again, the invisible register list, where if you don't come, your name is getting reported back many times in the UK, that we don't see Fulan in the masjid, therefore, and you have problems like Abdullah did, people not shaking his hand properly, not giving salams correctly, because you don't see you at the masjid in Medina. Like I went there to go to that particular masjid, and you have the masjid of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah. Subhanallah, that's like shaitan, subhanallah. Of course, I'm not saying anyone.
He said, you're getting a pound ahead of HQ.
Yeah.
And I would go to.
You have to.
As in, like, we'd exchange messages, me and you.
Okay.
You might say something that is not popular.
Okay.
Only with them.
Popular opinion.
It's not popular opinion.
Yeah.
I'll drive up to Birmingham. HQ.
Yeah.
And I would go to Abu Fulan. We need you to advise so and so. Look what he's saying. And I go to another Abu Fulan, same day, same trip. And they're like, obviously they'll say their bit, and then now they see you reporting back to them.
You said
you're getting a pound ahead.
The dirty work.
So doing the dirty work, reporting back, again, just like a mafia, like a gang, right? Then you have, they moved on to the meetings in the houses,
That's the dirty work.
That was the specific meet, I think AK's house, Abu Khadejah's house, correct? I was told by the brothers from Cricklewood, they told me specifically, they're telling me now, obviously after, that now they understood what it was, that the specific meetings where all of the Marakis, okay? Literally, when I say all of the Marakis, all of the Salafi Marakis that are known to be Salafi have to go every month or every year or something, I don't know when, and they have to have a meeting in his house. And there's, you've seen the back end, so you can please, if you can elaborate more. And this, before you do, let me just make the point. This is the point I believe it goes to,
Before we move on, though, that point specifically, I'll just mention there's an audio.
Now, the whole aspect of meetings in a particular house, Abu Khadejah's house in Birmingham, and so on and so forth. SubhanAllah, I remember once, I actually went to Abu Khadejah's house. This is years ago, with French brothers. They had a sitting, the French brothers from France and from Belgium, they had a sitting where they were invited to his house. And because I speak French, and I was very quiet, no one really suspected or knew that I'm not really with you guys, I'm just benefiting just coming to the masjid, And we went to his house, and subhanAllah, the French brothers, they respect him a lot. He's an ibra. The Salafiyyah in the UK is like the standard for many of the other European countries, the experience, and well, rightly so, but so he Ashahid is, the French brothers were invited to the house, and I happened to be there as well, and he gave some advice, they asked him questions about issues and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is about the meeting in his houses. It's like delegations, the same way we go to Shaykh Rabi's house, Fulan, or the Algerian brothers, the Moroccan brothers, they come, the Libyan brothers, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing. Allah musta'an.
Yeah, the one where if you're Salafi, who you take from, basically.
Yeah.
Abdallah Al Bukhari, maybe in 2016, 2017, I translated an audio from him. I believe it was at Masjid Ridwan.
And inshallah, we'll put it in the description. So
it was asked. He was asked that does who you take from, meaning the durus that you attend, does that determine that you are Salafi? He said no.
And actually, just on a side note, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Ikhtisar, as short and summarized as you can, the meaning of Salafiyyah, because we mentioned as well many times.
Shaykh Abdallah Al Bukhari, as the brother is mentioning, does you specifically listening to a specific person, does that prove your Salafiyyah? And he said no. This is very interesting, and subhanAllah, just to backward, you have to go backwards for a little bit here. The concept of just visiting. I remember for years, or for years ago, it was mentioned that Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, in those days when Shaykh Rabi was in Mecca, he said something like, along the lines of, if you come to Hajj and you don't visit Shaykh Rabi, then there is a problem in your Salafiyyah. There's an issue there. And of course, many brothers had a problem with this. If I come to Hajj or I come to Umrah and I don't go to Shaykh Rabi's house, there's a problem in my Salafiyyah. And the brothers jumped on them, with clothes. That's true. If you don't go to Shaykh Rabi's house, then there's a problem in your Salafiyyah. People actually believe this. So, sometimes I feel like many things that are happening today is from the mistakes that those shuyukh did, and that's the reality. If Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi can say something like this, I don't think he was correct. And no one was better, of course. But for him to say something like this, then you can clearly understand. Why a person would say, if you don't go to the Salafi Masjid on Wright Street, then there's a problem in your Salafiyyah. If you don't go to Germantown, there's a problem in your Salafiyyah. If you don't go to this particular masjid, or listen to this particular sheikh, or visit this particular house, then this is a problem in your Salafiyyah. This is perhaps where it comes from, right? If the sheikh can say something like this, then, and perhaps, of course, maybe he realizes now that was a mistake. But back then, can you really blame? Well, you should blame the followers for believing that, to see or to not realize that this was a mistake. But then, if he done something like this, then how about the layman, the one who didn't study, and so on and so forth? They have a better excuse, or they have an excuse. Now, and then they go into describing the meeting of the bayan and what used to go down in the house of Uncle Abu Khadejah. I'm not going to go into those details. Moving on.
Just one thing that I remember specifically, Shaykh Muhammad Hafidhahullah mentioning, and he said, كيف يكون المرجع? How can such a person be the one that people return back to, and he cannot recite Fatiha?
Speaking about who?
Speaking about Abu Khadija. Yeah. And even when I heard that, I thought to myself, Allah, that makes sense, Shaykh. It makes very much sense.
I don't know if still, but
may Allah guide us and guide him. And once again, Ikhwani, those listening, brothers and sisters, we're not trying to belittle anyone.
You have to have a certain level of
the problem is not him, because we don't see, as far as I know, we don't see him up there claiming to be Qari.
Yeah.
But the followers who raise him to the status.
That's what, exactly.
And even him giving ahkam on people.
That's the thing.
When this is your hal.
Yeah.
I mean, he does the khutbah, somebody else leads, right? I
don't know if it still happens. Yeah.
Allah musta'an. SubhanAllah, you can see that these brothers are ready. They came prepared. We're just going to put the gloves on and khalas, let's go in the ring. I'm just going to mention khalas. So a few things to mention here, a few things to touch on. Firstly, Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi. and him mentioning how is it that Uncle Abu Khadija is the reference, the marja, and he can't even recite Surah Al-Fatiha. And Abdullah says, well, when he said that, he said, oh, that actually makes sense. It makes sense. How is he the reference and he can't recite Fatiha? And this is, of course, something that has been mentioned a lot of times. And for those who saw the video of him reciting Surah Al-Fatiha and other surahs and the mistake that he did and so on and so forth, this became an object of mockery for Uncle Abu Khadija, and it was very sad. Wallahi, it was very sad. And I don't know how you can come back from that. But ala kulli hal, what doesn't sit well with me is the following. Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, in a video, this video right here,
وإخواننا في المكتبة السلفية في برمنغهام أعرفهم تماما، أعرفهم من أكثر من 13 سنة أو 14 سنة، الآن السنة ال15 تقريبا، وأنا أعرفهم وأعرف صحة طريقهم ومنهجهم الذي هم عليه. وهؤلاء الذين ذكرت أعرف بعضهم كان عند.
So the Shaykh Hafidhahullah Ta'ala mentions here that the brothers at the Maktaba Salafiyya, he knows them very well, tamaman. And he knows, he says, صحة طريقهم. He knows the correctness of their way. And he mentions the amount of years that he knows them for, or he's known them for. 13, 14, 15 years. And that was back then. And this video was posted at least 10 years ago. Right? So now, my problem, my ishkal is this, is the following. How is it that Shaykh Muhammad knows them for that amount of years, and the Shaykh didn't know that Abu Khadija didn't or doesn't know how to recite Surah Al-Fatiha? How is Abu Khadija, Uncle Abu Khadija, the representative of Salafiyyah, the main figure in the West, but the Shaykh never knew that he doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha? I'm not saying that maybe he has to know, or he was reciting Surah Al-Fatiha and the Shaykh corrected him or something like that. But and if you know a person for that amount of years, no one ever told you, no one ever came forward and mentioned, Shaykh, he doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, like he doesn't know how to recite Surah Al-Fatiha correctly. I find it very problematic that the news never came to him, never got to him from no one from the Western students who SB refuted, spoke about. And I'm sorry, but it seems like it's almost every time there's a split, when we don't agree anymore, these points start to come out. When it's division now, we start mentioning things. If the Shaykh knew that Abu Khadija doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, why didn't he at least, at best, say, you know what, Abu Khadija, you step away. Abu Hakeem has studied more than you. He recites Surah Al-Fatiha better. He knows the Quran more. He's been in the Jamia and so on and so forth. Let him take the lead of the da'wah. Why was that never said? Allah knows best. But my problem is, for about 20 years now, before the split, of course, that the Shaykh knew them. I don't know how we didn't realize that Abu Khadija is not the most knowledgeable, or shouldn't be at the forefront. But like I said, it's almost every time there's a split, you start bringing this stuff, you start bringing these allegations. SubhanAllah, I heard also that Shaykh Abdallah Al Bukhari, after the split happened between them, because Shaykh Abdallah, of course, he's with Shaykh Rabi and Shaykh Ubayd. I want to say Shaykh Ubayd. I don't really want to bring Shaykh Rabi into this, because to me personally, his position is still not clear. It's very vague. It's not really clear. There's always claim. Both sides are claiming him like that. And you have Shaykh Muhammad on the other side. Okay? So Abdullah Al Bukhari, one of the things that he had, or he mentioned when criticizing Shaykh Muhammad, he said from the Jamia for years, we've noticed that he was very harsh. In the Jamia, he was very harsh. We noticed his harshness. And in my head, I'm thinking, so you've noticed and you saw a pattern of him being harsh, at the Islamic University of Medina with colleagues and so on and so forth. And that one was never spoken about. But only when the split happens, then you start bringing these things. And I'm scratching my head. Like, okay, I understand we have to have sabr on our brothers. The mistake of Ahl Sunnah, it's not like Ahl Bidah and so on and so forth. But why are you bringing it now? Why are you bringing it now? That shouldn't be a point. When he used to be on the Sunnah, that was an excuse for him. So now because he's not on the Sunnah, you have to bring all of that out. I see that to be very problematic and very concerning. So every time there's a split, then these issues start coming. So for the Shaykh to say that Abu Khadejah, how can he be the leader when he doesn't even recite Surah Al-Fatiha correctly? How did that come about, Shaykh? And it's sad. It's sad. But don't get me wrong here. I love Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi. SubhanAllah, I remember the first time I met him was after Salat al-Fajr. I was staying close to Cultivating, and I went to Fajr at his masjid. Very nice, sweet man. It was very nice to see him. And I love his eloquence, his style. And subhanAllah, there's some close brothers that I'm close with from Cameroon, from my home country, who recently had a telelink with him. And it was just nice to listen to him again. So I personally love Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi. I love the fact that, and I respect the fact that he stood his ground against anything that came his way. Everybody was expecting that if Shaykh Rabi says something about someone, he's done. That wasn't the case with Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi though. Many people got written off. Shaykh Muhammad didn't get it. That just shows the makana that he had, with people. So again, this is not taking a dig in, at Shaykh Muhammad, but it's just again mentioning an ishkal. How is it that for that amount of time, 15 years, 20 years, the Shaykh never knew that that Uncle Abu Khadija can't recite with the Fatiha or recite the Quran properly? And as I said, at best, okay, Abu Khadija, you stay on the side a little bit, become the second man. But it's clearly is known that Abu Khadija he's the first, he's the head, he's the face. At best, he could have put on the side, okay, go and learn for a little bit more, learn how to read the Quran and so on and so forth, then come back. My Shaykh Abu Usamah mentioned sometimes about this specific issue that Abu Khadija doesn't know how to recite the Fatiha. He said, well, we all are ajim, we're not Arabs, so it's possible that we don't know how to recite Fatiha correctly. This is possible, and he actually, subhanAllah, finds an excuse for him, although the whole battle between them two. Another point that I wanted to mention specifically concerning Surah Al-Fatiha itself, and what Bassam mentioned, which is he leads or he gives the khutbah, but someone else leads the salah. And a quick search on Google, I actually found a nice piece on Islam Q&A. Whether you agree with Islam Q&A or not, Su'al al-Munajjim, Sururi, and so on. I believe that Islam Q&A is one of the best websites that a person can go to for fatwa, hands down. So it says here, السؤال هل يجوز أن يخطب شخص ويصلي الجمعة شخص آخر؟ حصل هذا في مسجدنا حيث انتهى الخطيب من الخطبة ثم صلى بنا شخص حافظ، فهل هذا صحيح؟ So he says, is it permissible for a khatib to give the khutbah and a different person is praised? He said this happened in our masjid when he finished the khutbah, someone else who is a hafiz led the salah. Is it correct? Says الجواب الحمد لله قال الإمام ابن قدامة رحمه الله تعالى رحمه الله تعالى فصل. Ibn Qudamah رحمه الله تعالى, from the Aimma of the Hanabila, the Hanbali Madhab, he said فصل, chapter, والسنة أن يتولى الصلاة من يتولى الخطبة لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يتولاهما بنفسه. Ibn Qudamah has a chapter and he says the sunnah is that the person who leads the salah is the person that gave the khutbah. And this is because the Prophet ﷺ used to do both of them himself. وكذلك خلفاؤه من بعده, and also the khulafa, the Abu Bakr and Umar, the caliphs after him. وإن خطب رجل وصلى آخر لعذر جاز. So if a person gives the khutbah and another person gives or prays the salah, then it's permissible with an excuse, if he has an excuse. جاز. نص عليه أحمد. This is what Imam Ahmad رحمه الله تعالى mentioned. لأنه إذا جاز استخلاف في الصلاة الواحدة لعذر ففي الخطبة مع الصلاة أولى. وإن لم يكن عذر فقال أحمد رحمه الله لا يعجبني من غير عذر. Right? He said that Imam Ahmad رحمه الله تعالى, he mentioned and he says that if there's no excuse for a person to do so, he says لا يعجبني فيحتمل المنع. Right? Those who know Imam Ahmad رحمه الله تعالى, he had some wara. He didn't always used to say this is haram, blunt like this. Okay, he would say لا يعجبني. I'm not entertained by it. I don't like this. Okay, he says فيحتمل المنع, so it's possibly impermissible. So it could be understood that he saw it to be impermissible. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يتولاهما, as we said, the Prophet used to do both of them. وقد قال صلوا كما رأيتموني أصلي, رواه البخاري وأحمد. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said in the hadith, pray as you saw me pray. Right? So this is the proof that he mentioned that because the Prophet used to do the khutbah and the salah together, then the person should pray as the Prophet does so or did so, as in give the khutbah and lead the salah yourself, both of them. And the hadith is in Al-Bukhari and Ahmad. ولأن الخطبة أقيمت مقام ركعتين ويحتمل الجواز. It's also because the khutbah was placed or replaces the first 2 rakat, because Salat al-Dhuhr usually is 4 rakat. But on Jum'ah, you have the khutbah first, which is on the place which is, replaces the first 2 rakat, and then you have the 2 rakat of the actual Jum'ah. And so the first 2 rakat is as though the khutbah took that place, and then you have the other 2 rakat. فيحتمل الجواز. So it's possibly a person might say that this is permissible. Why? لأن الخطبة منفصلة من الصلاة, because the khutbah is separate from the salah itself. فأشبهتا صلاتين. So it is as if it's 2 different salahs. Right? You finish the khutbah, that was 2 rak'at, that was 1 salah, is done. Then you have the actual salah, the 2 rak'at. It's 2 different things. Al-Mughni. So this is mentioned in Al-Mughni. كتاب الجمعة فصل يتولى الصلاة من يتولى الخطبة. And then he says وكون الذي صلى أحفظ من الخطيب لا يبرر مخالفة السنة في كون الخطيب هو الإمام. And this is the محل الشاهد. Just because the person who was placed to lead the khutbah has more hifz, he knows more Quran, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to go against the sunnah. Allahu A'lam why Abu Khadejah, Uncle Abu Khadija, doesn't lead the salah. Maybe it's for some other reason. Allahu A'lam. But if it's just because the Imam of the Masjid has more hifz and so on and so on and so forth, then according to this, then leaving the sunnah because of an excuse like this is not permissible. You shouldn't do so. فيصلي الخطيب بالناس ويقرأ بما تيسر من القرآن ولو كان وراءه من هو أحفظ منه والله تعالى أعلم. So the khatib should pray, lead the salah with that which, from the Quran, that which is easy for him to recite. Right? Even if behind him there's someone that has more hifz. So this is this point. Of course, Bassam was not talking about this specifically. What is the reason why he does so? Allah Ta'ala A'lam. But if it's for this reason, just to clarify and benefit perhaps the listener about this particular issue, don't just say Abu Khadija, he gives the khutbah and someone else prays. It's permissible to do so. And Allah Azza wa Jal perhaps knows his reason, his author for that. But now a person might say, why does he do it for the khutbah of Jummah but not on the Eid? I've came many times, I've prayed many times in the Eid, and Abu Khadija led the salah and he gave the khutbah as well. Then you have other answers of Shaykh bin Baz and also Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, but I believe that what Ibn Qudama said, fi al-kifaya. So that's the point of the khutbah. Moving on.
That's right.
I don't know if it still happens, but
Yeah. Shaykh Al Fawzan was asked about that.
Somebody else would do that.
Wallahi, Ikhwan, I'm
not actually confirmed it's true. That's correct.
I know that's true.
He did that in Troy. Wallahi, Ikhwan, I'm not gonna lie to you. I would be. There's no khutbah.
He said Abu Khadija did that in Troy as well. But again, like I said, someone might ask the question, why do you do that in the khutbah of Jumu'ah but not in Eid? Sometimes in Eid you lead Salah.
Ever sat in.
That is the strangest.
And so listen to this.
Right?
I don't know if it still happens, but
Shaykh Al Fawzan was asked about that.
Somebody else would do that.
Wallahi, Ikhwan, I'm
not actually confirmed it's true. That's correct.
I know that's true.
He did that in Troy.
Wallahi, Ikhwan, I'm not gonna lie to you. I would be. There's no khutbah I've ever sat in.
That is the strangest.
And he's about to say Allah says or Qala Allah, and I feel like just rolling up into a ball. If he gets past this, alhamdulillah. Each time, I'm not, wallahi, akhi, wallahi, I'm not joking. Wallahi.
So here he's not even talking about the khutbah or the leading salah after the khutbah. It's talking about the actual recitation of a verse in the khutbah, right? And Abu Bakr mentions that he would roll up. Naam. And when he would recite it correctly, he would like, alhamdulillah, you know, he was good. Just FYI, the person that put together those ayat that Abu Khadija recited wrongly and made it into an actual video, that's one of the funniest video about this issue that you would see. I didn't research it, I didn't find it, but I'm sure you can find it. Ala kullin, so Abu Bakr mentions that, subhanAllah, he would be very uncomfortable when Abu Khadija would lead or would mention an ayah. Right? Now, I want to ask this question. Okay? I really want to know, and of course, I didn't speak to Abu Bakr about this specifically or personally, but I really want to know why Abu Bakr was with them for that amount of time, 2 years and something. I mean, maybe perhaps even more than that. And you knew this. And this is something that was happening constantly. Now, if you knew this, why did you stick with them? Why did you stick with him? Maybe you didn't stick with him, but as in, what are you there for? Now, a person might say, well, because it's the best masjid in Birmingham, the most at that time, he believed that perhaps that was the best masjid in Birmingham, and so on and so forth. Okay. But it's the Quran though. It's the book of Allah Baraka wa Ta'ala. And subhanAllah, one brother actually said to me, Abu Marwa, his name is, or his kunya is, he said to me that once Abu Makkah was in the masjid, and Abu Marwa Abu Qadir, he was in the masjid as well, and he basically sat him down just to ask him some questions. I think Abu Makkah, he was very new to Birmingham at that time. I don't even know if he remembers it. But he started questioning Abu Qadir, Abu Marwa, about why doesn't he come to the Salafi Masjid, and why does he go to Green Lane Masjid? What's his position about Fulan and land, and so on and so forth. And I don't know. I believe perhaps Abu Makkah, not being with SP like that, it was gradual, and it was in stages. Perhaps that was still in the beginning. And I think this is many people. Many people, when they get to Birmingham, they start going to the masjid, and then they start noticing things. And it's just weird, and the vibe, and it's like, okay, I was sold a dream here. I don't know I don't know what this is about, but this is not, my body, my soul is not at ease with this happening around me. There's some people that love it. Like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. Khalas, mashi. But I think people start leaving them in stages anyway. Now, they went on to speak about, speaking about people's honor. Speaking about people's honor and so on and so forth. And subhanAllah, at the end of the video, they actually go into, especially Abdullah, that they used to do so themselves. Speaking about people's honor, And again, I rate it. I personally rate it. The fact that Abdullah acknowledged it. You know, I didn't really listen or hear Ilyas acknowledging the fact that yes, we used to speak about people unjustly. We used to talk about people unjustly. We used to, you know, speak about people's honor. Now we realize. Now my question is, as Allah says, فَإِن تَابُوا وَأَصْلَحُوا وَبَيَّنُوا. Right? I want to know. I really want to know. The brothers that, you know, they spoke against, did you ever apologize to them? I would assume they did. But there's an ishkal to not just them, but even wider, even to, you know, other people who you used to speak against. I remember Shaykh Suhaimi in the conference in Kuwait. He mentioned that people who speak about him and so on and so forth, and then someone came to him and said, Shaykh, wallahi, I'm really sorry I used to speak about you and so on and so forth. He said, I forgive anyone who spoke about me and so on and so forth. You see, the person came and apologized. And that's what the Muslim should do. If you spoke about anyone unjustly, you have to go to them and rectify it. In tabu, you make tawbah, yes. وَأَصْلَحُ وَبَيَّنُوا. You have to clarify now. You have to go and ask them for forgiveness. Again, not talking to Abu Bakr specifically, or to Abdullah, or to Ilyas and these, no, anyone else. If this is what you used to do, then rectify it right now. Call the person. If the person is dead now, make dua for them, give sadaqah for them, and so on and so forth. But this is tremendously dangerous, right? So if you were to do it, if you was to do it, then make sure that you fixed it today. Because again, you're going to be alone in front of Allah Ta'ala asking or answering these questions about what you said concerning people's honor. And then they move on to talking about Shaykh Ubayd Al-Jabiri rahimahullah ta'ala. And there's a lot that can be said about Shaykh Ubayd. And we're not going to go much into it because again, you know, he passed away, rahimahullah.
Not dirar. It's not like they're trying to cause harm to each other. It was a mission to get from one to the East London's massive. Do you understand? But even then, it wasn't happy. So what did they do? Somehow, I don't know what was fed to Shaykh Ubayd. All of a sudden, Shaykh Ubayd said, Amr wasn't truthful, blah, blah, blah.
Take the money back.
He needs to give the money back. Guess what Abu Khadija suggested? He goes, you should take the money and give it out to the other marakis and other masajid.
Of course.
Akhi, imagine.
Now, the whole issue of MHBay, I remember, subhanAllah, in one of the conferences, someone asked a question about MHBay. Abu Hakeem. Abu Hakeem was answering questions. I mean, he was a panel, if I'm not mistaken. And someone says, what is the issue? What is your issue? Or why don't you cooperate with the brothers at MHBay? And I was sitting down to myself, MHBay, what is MHBay? I personally love to go to the conference for the question and answer, because that's where, if you want to laugh and listen to the rhetoric again, go to the conference for the Q&A. It's going to be the same thing, the same questions and the same refutation, and it's just funny. So someone did ask a question about MHBay, and I was sitting down, what's MHBay? I didn't know it was that markers in London that split and so on and so forth. But the brother said that he doesn't know what was fed to Shaykh Ubayd. And again, I'm thinking to myself, yani, how powerful is this system that shuyukh are manipulated like this? And yani, what is this? He says he doesn't know what was fed to him. Many of these things, you don't even have to like comment on, because it is bad as bad as it sounds, you know.
There's been people who's been Muslim for I don't know how many years. This brother, he accepts Islam. In 2 years of him finding the truth, he learns the Arabic language. This is the story of our brother Ilyas, حفظه wa ra'a wa صانه min kulli عين wa hasad. Say Ameen and say Allahumma barik. In 61 weeks, 14 months, he learned the Arabic language. In 14 months, he unlocked the treasures of wisdom that are digged and buried down and under that surface that you cannot get to unless you learn the Arabic language.
A close circle, popular issue during the fitna and the issue of bitana, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the anbiya of Allah bitanatan. A bitana, a
close circle.
Close circle.
Those advisors,
Yani those who surround that shaykh, the bitana, the circle, the close circle, the inner circle. He gave them one that would give them advice and good, for that to exist with us, a proxy. They really, Prophet ﷺ and everything, they would say these individuals like Abu Iyad, the shaykh is just a proxy. These nice words, flowery words he likes to use, sophisticated. It's just a proxy. They really intend Shaykh Rabi. Like, do you accept this hadith for the Prophet ﷺ? And if the Prophet ﷺ said this, do you say then that he intends the Anbiya, he's trying to attack the Anbiya? No. We take
Now the whole issue of bitana, the close circle, a number of individuals around the Shaykh that advise him with bad, bring him false information and so on and so forth. Again, this is something that has been spoken about for a good decade and a half, if not 2 decades even, maybe 20 years. I remember listening to this from our Shaykh Abu Usamah. This whole thing, and subhanAllah, he mentions to me many times a person called Fernando, who used to go to Shaykh Rabi's house and give him information and so on and so forth. And he destroyed a lot of things in the da'wah. And today Fernando is a singer. He's a murtad. He's not a Muslim anymore. Not just a singer, Muslim. No, he's a murtad. Bas. So, Ilyas mentioned the hadith of Sallallahu or the Anbiya having bitanatan and so on and so forth. So if you accept that hadith for the prophets and the messengers, how about a scholar? Right? And this was mentioned, of course, Dr. Tahir White, Muhammad Munir, many of them, Mufti, right? About this whole bitana thing. Or you have scholars who are fed things. They told things about the da'wah worldwide, right? And they give rulings. So having evil advisors is subhanAllah, but how long can you do this for though? That's an excuse. You have to find an excuse for the ulama, but you have to look deeper than this. So moving to the next point.
MashaAllah, that's khair, make dua. The first thing he said to reply to me was that I said to him, Shaykh, أنا صراحة لا أدري.
There's something I want to add to that Muhammad Abdul Razak had informed me. There was one post that Dar al-Sunnah put out a few years ago. The visit of Imam Saud university students to Shaykh Rabi's house. And it was added in there أدرج فيه أصحاب الحديث يعرفون الإدراج.
Again, Muhammad Abdul Razak, of course, as I mentioned earlier, a very interesting brother, and subhanAllah, I went to college with him before he got accepted at the Islamic University of Medina, and perhaps inshallah I'm going to go into more details about it in a series that I want to do, my own experience, with this whole issue, personally speaking. And brothers told me for a long time that when you go to Medina, when you get accepted at the Islamic University of Medina, 9 times out of 10, when you come back, you are going to leave SP. And when Muhammad got accepted in Medina, I really wanted to see if this was true in him, if this was going to happen with him, because he used to be with SP. So when he left, as time went on, he would come back, and I was waiting for the day he was going to leave them, and it eventually happened. And I was like, subhanAllah, just as Bassam was talking about, when you go to Medina, you learn, you seek knowledge, and inshallah you're sincere with them, and so on and so forth. When you come back, they start warning against you, they start speaking about you, and so on and so forth. And that happens to many people, unless you're going to, of course, remain under their foot, under their tutelage, under you know, unless you want to stay as a foot soldier and you don't want to give da'wah correctly on a large scale, right? If you don't want to do that, then khalas, you're going to remain with them. But a person who wants more than that, who wants to do more than that and benefit the people, actually benefit the people or benefiting the people, he's not going to stay with SP. Right? And that actually happened with Akhwana Muhammad. And subhanAllah, it was just, for me, it was that fact of when you go to Medina, you come back, you're not going to be with them. That was true in his, in his case, and many others, of course.
Knows that when the Shaykh get papers, some of them have been given to me and I've held them, the Shaykh doesn't even want to read them. He doesn't have time. Okay? He puts them there, and then I've seen, like I said to you once again, the Shaykh will get papers, he'll flick through it if he's pressured. Okay? Pressured. But most of the times he just put it on the side and he won't read it. They've obviously now gone to the Shaykh about someone who's going to come to you when they've heard. And okay, to give everyone an insight, unfortunately I was used as the person where whoever's coming to the Shaykh, I have to report back to Whay, Abdul Madkhali specifically. So this was the...
Again, it's just funny, man. And it's subhanAllah, again, I just love the fact that Abdullah is very honest about this. And he says that unfortunately I was used as the person who will report back to Whay and Abdul Madkhali who comes to the Shaykh and so on. Because Abdullah, of course, he had a very close connection with Shaykh Rabi, going to his house and being close to him and so on and so forth, and living next to him also. And but it's just he was used basically, right? And subhanAllah, realizing this, wallah, is the name of Allah Azza wa Jalla on him. Moving on, but of course that's connected to the fact that they have minions and they have people that they have placed for them to control and see what's going on and actually supervise and monitor what's going on. And so he was used to be the person who was to report back about anyone that visits Shaykh Rabi and so on and so forth. But one thing that I wanted to also speak about was the fact that he said when the Shaykh is pressured, or even the next point or something connected to this, as we're going to hear.
Did say to them, he goes, he wants to speak to Shaykh Sulaiman himself. He wanted to speak to Shaykh Sulaiman, and he said that he wants to see what he says. But they were waiting for hukum. They wanted something from the Shaykh. And that's something that I wasn't surprised. I was used to. Many of the brothers have come before, from the West or not from the West, when they want a fatwa, they will force it out of the Shaykh. But of course the Shaykh has respect for them. That's that respect was used and misused, I should say.
They abused the love of Shaykh Rabi for the Salafis and their ijtima against him.
Now, he said people come to Shaykh Rabi and they force a fatwa out of him. They pressure him. And of course they're going to say this is disrespect to the Shaykh. He's speaking about him like he was a kid. Speaking about him like, he doesn't know what he's doing and so on and so forth. How do you force a fatwa out of Shaykh Rabi? And how has that been going on for that much amount of years? It's not recent. It's not just when it happened with certain publications or Shaykh Sulaiman or this recent fitna. This is something again that has been mentioned for a long time. One thing that I have to mention here. When our Shaykh Abu Usamah, may Allah bless him, hafidahullah, he said, I saw things from Shaykh Rabi that does not allow me to take everything that he says. They said this is ta'an on Shaykh Rabi. He's speaking ill of the scholars. But it goes hand in hand with what Abdullah mentioned here. It goes hand in hand with what Abdullah mentioned here. Forcefully taking ahkam from Shaykh Rabi about people. So when he said that, when Shaykh Abu Usamah said that, it was as though the dunya flipped over. That he saw things from Shaykh Rabi that does not allow him to take everything that he says. This is the same thing. So people who run around with that, talking about the fact that he's making power of the scholars, he doesn't respect the scholars, and so on and so forth, you have to do the same thing with this. You cannot agree with this, Abdullah mentioning that they get fatawa forcefully out of Shaykh Rabi and disregard and still blame Shaykh Abu Usamah for what he said about that. This is the same thing. So again, going to forcefully taking speech from Shaykh Rabi. I have a problem personally with that been happening systematically for 20 years or more. Did the Shaykh realize that this is what they're doing? Couldn't he tell them, nah, don't come back with this. I don't want to hear it. Put them on the side, ban them. The same way Shaykh Fawzan does. I heard that Shaykh Fawzan, when you call him from France, he doesn't even pick up the phone. When you bring him any of that kalam, he just khalas. I don't want to hear it. So Ilyas is saying that they abused the love of Shaykh Rabi for the Salafi and so on and so forth. For 20 years, I'm more content with what Shaykh Fawzan would do. Just put it on the side. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to read it. I don't want to deal with it yourself. I don't want to hear it. Fix it yourself. But constantly bringing names and things, and the Shaykh is reading it, and then again forcefully get a fatwa out of the Shaykh for 20 years. That's sad. That's sad.
To show you the Shaykh's love for the sunnah, and then the event that took place with the fitna with Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, Hafidhahullah, and Shaykh Rabi, for all the viewers, just to give you guys an insight of how the Shaykh is as a character, and to show you that if he's been given the picture that a person is causing tafarruq, division and splitting, he'll do exactly that. And that's one of the points you mentioned. When, they're given evidences and that bitan as-su is showing them the bad image. We were in the car with two other individuals, and it was
So again, that has been happening for 20 years or longer than that even. People bringing names, oh Shaykh, he did this, he's doing this in the country, and so on and so forth, and then boom, the hukum falls on the person, and the person is refuted, put on the side, boycotted, warned against, delays his audios, his duros, and there's a whole campaign against that person for 20 years. And it's not just Shaykh Rabi, Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, the same thing. We heard the audio where he's talking about the Maktaba Salafiyyah and the brothers that spoke about them, he knows them very well, and so on and so forth. For 20 years, that has been happening. So I'm not only going to blame Salafi publications for this, but I'm also going to say that, of course, those ulama have a part to play, There's certain things that they did. Allah Azza wa Jalla reward them well. And as you know, the hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that when the alim, he makes a mistake, then he has one reward from his ijtihad. If he's correct in his ijtihad, then he has 2 rewards. Okay? But I don't want, and I don't feel comfortable with myself placing the blame only on Abu Khadejah, only on those brothers, and not being real and mentioning that the shuyukh also have a part to play in what happened. So he's going to go ahead and mention an incident that happened in the car.
And it was a time when Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabri, Hafidhahullah, spoke against, Rahimahullah, Jazakallah Khair, he spoke against Shaykh Ahmed Bazmoul. Everyone knows what happened. So we were in the car that day. I kid you not, I've never ever seen the Shaykh more angry on that day. Shaykh Rabi, I'm talking about.
In Medina.
In Medina, obviously.
This is the second time then. What time?
Gives him respect and what have you. He cuts it short. He cuts you short. He wants
to Husari.
Mishawi.
Yeah, not his house. The food.
Loves the Quran.
Yeah.
He used to eat food. And that was something I remember. He was coming back, and he had heard, of course, what Shaykh Ubayd spoke out, and he was one of the first ones. So everyone was kind of confused, like, oh, but Shaykh Ahmed Bazmoul, we know him, and there's a bit of confusion. So the Shaykh, he goes, والله هذا ما ينبغي فرق السلفيين, and the Shaykh did not stop. He did not stop. And of course we got the 2 brothers in the back trying to what the right word to use is trying to
diffuse,
not
contain the situation.
Not control, but trying to
change the subject.
First of all, they're trying to calm the Shaykh down.
Yeah.
It's difficult to calm Shaykh Rabi down when he's angry. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, the man in his 80s.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, Hafidhullah. And then the second thing as well, they're trying to, yes, exactly, you know his haiba. The Shaykh, Allah Barak, had a haiba. May Allah preserve him, subhanAllah. Sunglasses, looking at it. Anyway, so point being was that as the Shaykh now is talking, he's making, and Wallah al-Alim, I'll never forget them points, because fi'lan, afterwards when I started reading up about what happened as well, and I'd already been there when Shaykh Ubayd was talking about that incident. So now I've put two and two together that Shaykh Rabi did not agree with him. Okay, but this is something that I want to point out. Shaykh Rabi didn't agree with him, but at the same time, does it mean that he wanted to make nashr of what he said in the car and to make everyone else listen to it?
Exactly.
That's the point.
Exactly.
Hence why I was told, and I was told then when we left the car, and the reason being
By these brothers.
Reason being because not the Shaykh. Of course not the Shaykh. Shaykh, he doesn't care. Yeah, and he's doing it lillah. He's angry for the sake of Allah, and you can see it. He's not slandering. He's not backbiting. He's just saying, يعني he's caused division. وهذا ما ينبغي. هذا يفرق أهل السنة والجماعة وأهل البدع يعني يفرحون بهذا. You know, this caused division with the people from the Sunnah, and أهل البدع, people of innovation, are happy with this. So of course,
you were saying Shaykh Ubayd that caused the...
Yes, because of the fact Shaykh Ubayd rahimahullah had said something. Obviously he made his ijtihad about Shaykh Ahmed Bazmouz. So Shaykh Rabi didn't like that because he saw that there was no need for that specific thing. So point being was that the reason why I was told also to keep quiet, because them two brothers disagreed with the Shaykh. Because Shaykh Ubayd is very beloved to them as well. And Shaykh Ubayd agrees with everything that, you know, they utilized. They wanted to control the narrative. Not just that, but he was like, Shaykhana, ولكن كلامك يعني يؤثر السلفيون. So they knew that if that gets out, what would happen? They're in trouble.
Yeah. I'll tell you why, because they know in terms of hierarchy, in terms of the world, who's higher in the status of Shaykh Rabi. Shaykh Rabi's speech gets out. That's what they, you know. So they were happy.
So listen to this incident, subhanallah wa bihamdihi. And Abdullah says that he was told not to ever mention this and bring it out. And he actually didn't mention the name of the person. He said that, you know, he's not going to mention it. But, you know, I wanted to hear who those two brothers were. Again, unmasking the truth, right? Just being blunt and raw. I really wanted to mention, you know, to see who those two brothers were. Ala kulli hal, about these incidents, then Shaykh Rabi talking about Shaykh Ubayd because he spoke about Ahmed Bazmoon and so on and so forth. This divides the Salafis and so on and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, يعني شنشنة نعرفها من أخزم. I heard this statement from Abu Hakeem once. This is something that Shaykh Rabi mentions a lot, dividing the Salafis, and he has divided the Salafis and divided the Salafis. As far as imagine if that came out. Imagine if that came out. Maybe this split would have happened way years ago, many years ago. But the fact that they said that don't mention it, don't bring it out, keep it, it just shows the certain things that are kept low and certain things that are brought out. Certain things are kept, you know, in the circle, constricted, controlled, because if it goes out, it's going to confuse people even more. There's going to be drama and ishkal and so on and so forth. That's when it's against them. But when it's for them, when the Shaykh mentions something that they like, then straight away, Jadid. There's a new thing, there's new audio. Allah musta'an wa alayhi tuklan. And this is sad, Allah is very sad. In concluding, the brothers, they mention, you know, their pieces, their conclusions. The brother Bassam, he spoke about the hadith of taking ignorant people as leaders. اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهالا, you know, and that we knew this about other sects, Ahl Bida, Al Hawa, and so on and so forth. They take ignorant people, but now you have people who ascribe to Salafiyyah doing the same thing. But again, this has been said years and years ago. This is something that has been said before, right? And going back to the audio of Abu Khadija mentioning where he studied. Right, just listen to this.
As for where I studied, though I did not sit in any of his duroot, 1 or 2 visits to the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Under him also Ubayd bin Abdullah Al-Jabari from the great scholars of Medina. Also with Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Hadi, sitting in his duroos whenever we had the opportunity, benefiting from him with questions in his house, in his masjid. Also Shaykh Abdallah bin Rahim Al Bukhari, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, Shaykh Ahmed Subai, Shaykh Tariq Al-Subai. Also with Shaykh Abdullah Al Ghudayyan, with Shaykh Muhammad of the 2 Razis, sunnah of the Raziyain, Abu Hatim and Abu Zur'a al-Razi. I completed under him, walillahi alhamd, al-Usul al-Thalatha, al-Qawaid al-Arba. Under him also the Aqidah al-Salaf, Ashab al-Hadith of Imam al-Sabuni, Umdat al-Ahkam, chapters from it, Sahih al-Bukhari, chapters from it, Bulugh al-Maram, chapters from it, all of this under Shaykh.
So, Ashahid is, this is the only audio that I think I've heard where Uncle Abu Khadija is mentioning where he studied from. And many people spoke about the fact that he mentions chapters from it. So apart from the basic mutun, none of the larger works, or medium works of hadith, Umdat al-Ahkam and so on, were completed fully. Chapters from it only. I remember Mufti mentioning the same thing, Mufti Munir. Sensei, chapters from it, that's all you have? Allah understand. So again, going back to the point where Abu Sam was talking about, taking ignorant people as leaders, people that didn't study as much as the ones for, first and foremost. Now, there's something that I've always thought about. In terms of organizing tactics, tanzeem, and so on and so, I think Abu Khadija is definitely the best person for it. I think Uncle Abu Khadija is actually the best person. He's a mastermind, if you want to say it like that. Leading in that way. If this is what he stuck to, he was doing for the da'wah, it would have been good. Teaching, been ahead in terms of teaching, khutbah, and refutation and things like this. I don't think this was meant to be what he should have done. In terms of tanzeem, organizing stuff and so on and so forth, yeah. But the other side, not so much. So you have to give him that. In terms of planning and stuff like that, being a tactician, being a mastermind, halas, yes. Then he goes on to speak about a very important thing. Listen to this.
Tell by the title that, this was not something that we grew up upon at all. A brother would even abstain, no longer really connect the people to the scholars, and where people are being given titles and different ranks, we're seeing, even if they don't explicitly say it, you can tell by the title that, this was not something that we grew up upon at all. A brother would even abstain from being called Ustad, let alone Sheikh. That's the level of wara that we were taught growing up. But what we witness is something that is just shocking.
So of course he's talking about the fact that now the whole squad became shuyukh. Shaykh Abu Khadija, I don't know if they say Shaykh Abu Iyad, I'm assuming so. Shaykh Abu Hakeem, Shaykh Hassan Somali, Shaykh Whay Tawil, Shaykh Al-Akhdar, I don't know his name, Shaykh Anwar Wright, Shaykh Jamil, and so on and so forth. Some of them are still Ustad and some of them are Sheikhs now. But Ashahid is, this is not something that this is not something that is strange now, right? And subhanAllah, I personally remember maybe 10 years ago when I was speaking to one of the brothers who's still with the Maktab Salafiyyah till today. And I think I said Ustad Abu Khadija, and he was like, no, he doesn't want people to call him Ustad. Just say Abu Khadija. So, oh, okay. For me, at least a level of respect, Ustad. He says, no, don't say that to him. Now, 10 years down the line, shuyukh. And of course, they're going to claim that, I think it was Shaykh Muhammad al-Banna who actually called them Shaykh. So now they became shuyukh all of a sudden. When in fact, when on posters, you would have Shaykh Abu Usamah Ath-Thahabi, Shaykh Fulan, they would say, this is takabbur. Other Salafi duats that had Shaykh Fulan on, they would say, this is takabbur. What are you allowing people to, write Shaykh in front of your name? Now all of a sudden they became shuyukh. So this is a joke, of course. The fact that Shaykh Muhammad al-Banna called them shuyukh, now they became shuyukh. This is a joke of an excuse, to be honest with you. And their followers might say, well, they don't say it themselves. It's the followers that, it's us that mention it. Even then, it's the same thing. The Salafi dua they spoke about, they warned against back in the days, did they use it for themselves? Did they used to say, call me Shaykh Abu Usamah? I don't think you used to say that. So why was that takabbur at that time and this is takabbur? Or even if the Shaykh said it, why do you have to use it? Why do you have to use it because the Shaykh said it? You can choose not to use it. You can choose to keep it as Abu Khadija, Abu Hakeem, and so on and so forth. Why you have to put Shaykh now? Why you allow? And this has become systematic now. Every poster is like this, or most of the posters are like this, right? Then Brother Aidarus Ilyas, he mentions his conclusion as well. And he talks about, stopping people from understanding the deen, and the fact that those who stop you from understanding the deen, they're like the jinn. They have the same, or they do the same thing that the jinn do, right?
And so Ibn Qayyim says that these individuals, the representatives of Iblis, who hinder the people from the path of knowledge and seeking knowledge and from understanding their religion, are worse than the jinns. Are worse than the jinns, who will harm the individual in a physical manner.
The jinn are going to harm you in a physical manner, and people stopping you from acquiring knowledge, from learning, from benefiting. They're harming your soul, they're harming your akhirah, they're harming your alaqa with Allah Azza wa Jal. The most important thing, your iman. And this is true because I'm sure many of you guys heard and know the fact that people started practicing, came to Salafiyyah, were staunch and very fanatic to Salafi publications, and then they stopped practicing and went back to their ways on the street. People came to Islam, became staunch supporters of Salafi publications, and eventually left Islam. And this whole thing revolves around knowledge and being sincere as well, and not taking things easy, not being balanced. I remember a brother, he became Muslim but that again, that's like years ago. He became Muslim recently. So he comes to me, I met him at the Maktab Salafi in the Masjid, and we lived in the same area. That's a Caucasian white brother. Me and him are speaking, and he wants to learn Quran. He says, okay, can you teach me the alphabet and so on and so on? I'm like, yeah, I don't mind, no problem. We start 1 lesson, 2 lessons, and next time I saw him, he's talking about going in the masjid and not going there and so on and so forth. And he's talking about Sharh al-Sunnah of Barbahari, and he said to me, I didn't come to Islam to be astray, and rightly so. But why are you speaking about green in the masjid? You're a new Muslim, brand spanking new Muslim. Why are you talking about green in the masjid? Why are you talking about Barbahari? You can't even read Quran properly. You can't even mention the alphabet, just the alphabet of the huruf al-ijab. This is what happens, and Allah knows best what happened to that brother. I see him sometimes, but he's not the way he used to be though. Definitely not. his case is actually, I don't even know if he's Muslim or not anymore, but a shahid is, there are people that came to the deen, started practicing, and then they stopped practicing and went back to the streets. People came to Islam and then left Islam through this channel, through your publications, and their affiliates all over the world. It's a fact. And he goes into speaking about the fact that, don't worry about boycotting, the slander, the refutation that's going to come out, apart from this video, the podcast they made. And alhamdulillah, this is something that we've been practicing for a long time now. We don't care about no boycotting anymore. Whatever happens, khalas. We off anyway, as they say. So then Abdullah concludes his part as well, and this is what he mentions.
Through these marahil, we've gone through about this person and that person, being around that circle, then you could say that, you can't relate to me. But I've been there, done that. The brothers have been there, done that. We've gone through these marahil, we've gone through these stages where we were once upon a time on that side of the park. We were on that side of the park where we ourselves were we heard something, we just refute that person.
And again, this is what I appreciate about him, especially him in this podcast, where he was blunt and he actually mentioned that this is something that we used to do, unfortunately. Right? Unfortunately, we did that. But again, as I said, the message goes to everyone else who done it as well. Make islah. إن تابوا وأصلحوا وبينوا. Make islah, or make tawbah. Make islah, rectify, and clarify as well. If anyone you spoke about unjustly, you slandered and so on and so forth, go back to them and ask them to forgive you. Perhaps they're going to do so. And if they don't, then may Allah forgive you. Inna Allah ghafurur rahim. So ala kulli hal, this is what a person should do. And again, as I said, I really appreciate the fact that he was very open about this, and he mentioned it a lot of times. So he clearly mentioned he can relate to what you're doing, what you're going through right now, right? And he's today clearly calling people away from Salafi publications, and even clearer, even more, even clearer than how we used to do, or how we do it, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. Now he's off it, khalas, because people go to him confused and they want questions, and this is one of the reasons why they did the video. So I've never seen anyone that left SB speaking about SB like this. Then he speaks about the fact that if his task was is on their shoulders, on the to shed light and so on and so forth about these matters. He says,
but if it's going to be upon us to shed light and to speak about these matters that people should be speaking about, generally speaking, those that have come before us, then let it be us. وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ وَنَكْتَسِبِ الْأَجْرِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And we hope for the reward from Allah Azza wa Jal.
So again, yes, those who came before, in contrary to what Ilyas mentioned earlier, that this has not been done before. Again, he establishes that this has been done before. There's been many attempts to do so. Whether he means the examples that I gave or not, there has been attempts, right? And this is the reality. So we hope that Allah will reward them well for this, and wanting to save the youth or the younger ones, because we're still young, from the same mistake that they did, And he concludes and he mentions the fact that enough is enough. If they're going to refute them, they're going to talk about them, then that's fine, mashi, right? So I know this has been long, but some observations that I have to conclude this, inshallah. One thing that I've noticed in the podcast is, although they did mention Salafi publication a lot of times, sometimes they will say they, because there's still some sort of reluctance to talk about this and to clarify this, and rightly so. It's not easy to speak about something that you used to affiliate with, that you were down with, and it's not easy. You have to be really strong-minded. You have to be really, to a certain extent, sincere about what you want to do, or about what you're trying to do right now, for you to come out and speak about it like this openly, right? And it's just, I see it praiseworthy, So there was some sort of reluctance in speech. But I think Abdullah had the highest amount of bluntness and clarity, things like, they said a few times, maybe I shouldn't say this, or things, what Abdullah said concerning the incident. I'm not going to mention the person. I was expecting it to be very blunt. Like I would have loved it if he said it even clearly. It was Fulan. But they mentioned that perhaps this is not really, it's not really beneficial to mention the name. I think it is beneficial. I think is if we're going to put the gloves and expose everything on the table, then let it be every single thing. Another thing is, it seems like, and as I mentioned earlier, a person who agrees with SP, he start leaving them gradually, right? When you're with SP and you start realizing certain things, you start noticing certain patterns, you're still with them in body, but deep down you're not there. You just don't have another choice. In Birmingham, for example, a person, he's with SP, and then he starts noticing these things, but he can't go to Green Lane because Green Lane has this issue and that issue, and they bring Fulan and Allah and so on and so forth. So you're kind of stuck. Okay, where do you go from this? If I leave SP, if I don't go to the masjid anymore, where am I going to pray? I don't want to go pray at Green Lane. And this again is sad. Just go there and pray, man. Okay, don't listen to the dua that are there, but at least go there and pray. So some people find themselves in like a limbo. La ilaha ula wa la ilaha ula. They mudhabdhabina bayna dhalik. He doesn't know what to do. I can't leave SP. I see it to be the closest masjid to the sunnah. I can't go to Green Lane, but I'm not agree with what SP does, and Green Lane, and there's just a lot of confusion all around, right? And a mistake that many people do is that they think just because a person goes to the Salafi Masjid, just because a person goes there often and so on and so forth, that means he's with them 100%. Automatically he's with them and agrees with everything. But the reality is تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. You think that they're together, apparently, but their hearts are not together. And it becomes clear when they start dividing themselves. When there's division now, the venom, the intel, the information, we notice this and this is what is, and the secrets start coming out. You think they're together, but it's not the case, And as I said, it was said that if you see two people that used to be together, they were close. The moment they divide, you have to know that one person was not sincere towards the other, and their allegiance to each other, their friendship was based on batil. You see them fighting and insulting each other and mentioning names, and this it becomes a messy fight, a messy pillow fight, cake fight. Then you understand that there was a problem in the ikhlas. They were not together for Allah Azza wa Jal. It was for some dunya purpose or something else, but it wasn't for Allah. Because if it was for Allah, it's not going to be, it's not going to be this messy. They're not going to mention dirt about each other like that, right? So تحسبهم جميعا وقلوبهم شتى. Don't think anyone that's with SP that goes to the masjid, is with them and agrees with them. Nah. You'll be surprised. So I don't think it was only when the recent fitna happened or when Shaykh Sulaiman was defeated. I think people leave SP gradually, and at some point they can't take it anymore, and khalas, they come out. As I said, I really rate the courage that the brothers had to speak about this openly and mention these issues, and they felt like they have a level of responsibility to come out and speak about this, And I really hope that this is not what other brothers have done. Because you have some brothers these days who they've left this whole mindset, this whole cult, gang, mafia and whatever. But at the same time, you don't see them cooperating with other Salafis. You don't see them rectifying what they've done, what they destroyed, the speaking that they did to some people. And Shaykh Usamah, our Shaykh, he often says they are the wheel of the coin. You know, on the coin you have the one face and you have the other face, but then you have the wheel of the coin. Again, they're not here and they're not there. They became their own thing now. They still have the ideas of SP. They still have the methodology of SP. The whole mindset is still with them, but they just left SP or they were kicked out. Sometimes it's the case. Sometimes they were just kicked out, but they still have the same ideas. They're still going to talk about the Salafis. They're still going to refute other Salafis. They're still going to backbite and so on and so forth, but they just left SP or they were kicked out. There's that wheel of the coin, and they exist for sure. So be aware of that as well. As I said, I've been wanting to do something like this for 2 years now, and perhaps I'm gonna go. Inshallah, if Allah allows me to do so, I'm gonna do so. Mention my personal experience with much more detail about the whole aspect of the da'wah. I did give some examples already in this video, and all these questions that are raised, I really wanted to have answers for. And I think you asked yourself these questions as well. And I think they're valid questions. Inshallah, let me know, perhaps in the comments, if you think these questions are valid and if they should be asked. And perhaps, I would love in the next video, because the brothers, they mentioned that this is only going to be part 1. So I'm assuming there's going to be part 2 and part 3, and a whole series perhaps of episodes like this, answering these questions. And I hope certain questions, certain things that were raised in this video of mine are going to be addressed. Right? Why is the Shaykh doing this? And why did he do so? And perhaps, so people can again be upon even more clarity, inshallah azza wa jal. But ala kulli hal, anything that I said in this video which was correct, then it is from Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala wahdahu la sharika la. And anything that I said which was wrong, mistake, then it's only from shaitan and my ignorance of myself. And Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam are free from this. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.